Coming up on this episode of Student TV, we'll learn about one student's struggle with heart disease, we'll tackle the topic of football safety, and we'll help create awareness for ALS. All this and more on this documentary episode of Student TV. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Student TV. I'm your host, Mia Daniels. Our first documentary comes from Winston Churchill Middle School, and it takes on a topic close to the heart of its producer. Here's Caroline with more.
I feel like at our school, a lot of slang terms are used, and it's really offensive to me because I have friends who are in that community, and it's something that I hate seeing. Hi, my name is Caroline Wilkins, and my partner is Sophia Breslau. We're at Winston Churchill Middle School, and our SEVA is titled Being Gay because we think that our community needs to be more open-minded to the new things that come to our world.
This is a picture of the insides of two people. Can you see any differences between them? No? Me neither. So if there's no visible differences between the two people, then are they really that different? They're both living people with a beating heart, working limbs, and lungs that breathe. So if you think about it, there's no difference between the two of them in their physical being at all.
What if I told you that one of them was gay? Would you look at them differently?
If I knew that someone was gay, I don't think that I would treat them differently because I think that everyone deserves equal treatment. But I definitely see them in a different perspective because of their differing values from mine. But I do hope and I believe that over time we'll get used to this and we'll be able to adapt to what they believe in, and then we'll be able to interact as a global community, and there'll be less hate and homophobic people in the world.
People are afraid of something that they're not familiar with, or they're afraid of something that's already within them. So they might be closeted and they might be afraid of that and put that fear on someone else.
I don't think that people should be using gay as an insult because I think it's really offensive because some people use it as their self-identity. I think that in order for us to change the way that we look at people of this sexuality is to be less fearful of the different or something that's outside of the norm, because I think that it's really not our business to judge whether or not someone else's relationship with another person is right or wrong.
LGBT people are always coming out. Like there's never one moment you could say like, oh right, I'm done coming out. You're always meeting new people. You're always interacting with new people that you're always having to come out to. So I think being LGBT changes like anybody that is LGBT changes their life because they interact with the world differently.
Next up today, we head back to Winston Churchill Middle School and learn about another subject close to the heart of a student producer. Here's Franklin on his video, Heart Disease.
2 months ago, I was diagnosed with CPVT, which is a type of tachycardia, and it's a type of heart disease. And whenever I exercise, I have a lot of struggle breathing, so I kind of wanted to express my feelings through one way. My name is Franklin Pham, and please watch my documentary on heart disease. I was always an athletic child. I was always smiling and I loved to explore new things. These things began to become my life. Basketball, learning, drawing, these were all the things I loved to do. They were my passions. Before the diagnosis, I had played basketball competitively since I was 6, and I loved every single second of it. I started to become addicted to it, and being the best was my goal. But the problem started 2 years ago. I started becoming exhausted after barely any exercise at all. I had been the fastest and the most athletic in my class, but now I was walking in the back, getting lapped by the students I used to pass. After months of struggling, I finally talked to my doctor about it. They hooked me up to what is called a Holter monitor, and they didn't find anything wrong with me. I had no idea what was going on. After that, things started to get even worse. I would pass out abnormally often, and my heart rate would often reach over 300 beats per minute. Why was I struggling to do the basic things I used to do with ease, when the monitor said nothing was wrong with me? 2 months ago, in an effort to find what was wrong, I forced myself to be fatigued when they hooked me up to the Holter monitor again. They diagnosed me with CPVT, which is a type of tachycardia. Tachycardia is a heart condition that raises the heart rate to abnormal speeds. On average, a heart beats around 60 to 80 beats per minute. With this disease, people's heart rate can reach high speeds of almost 300 beats per minute. Episode causes the heart rate to jump from 60 heartbeats per minute to at most 300 beats per minute in a matter of seconds. There are many things that can trigger an episode. For example, stress, exercise, and just simply walking. Exercise is the only thing that causes me to have episodes. After playing basketball or running, I have many symptoms like lightheadedness, and I have fainted many times before. I couldn't play any sports or do any type of exercise that can strain my heart. I was determined to regain my lost athleticism and to play my loved sports once again. This determination, along with the help from my friends and family, has caused me to find new ways to solve my disease. I knew pills and medicines weren't going to solve my problem by itself. They were just there to prevent my heart from failing. I needed something else to solve the disease. I decided that the only way to solve my body's opposition to exercise was to exercise. At first, it was just a simple walk around the park. But after a while, that became too easy and I felt no strain on my heart. So I began to run short distances. Now, after these short exercises, I can play small and short basketball games with my friends with no strain on my heart. I'm still fighting and I'm still training every day to reach my dream. I still know that I have a chance. Although it feels unfair that I am being restricted of my own ability to become the best I could be, I know I have people helping me on every step of my recovery. Heart disease is more than an abnormality in my heart. It's an abnormality in my life, but I won't let that stop me.
Wow, that last video sure showed how passionate students are about their sports. Our next student producers are no exception. Here is high school football safety from Merryhill, Midtown.
Sometimes you need to know who you're sitting next to. So if you're from the media, would you mind standing real quick? Just real quick. We're not gonna have you say a whole lot. Tell us who you're representing, young man.
We're representing Merryhill schools, and we're doing a documentary on like football safety and stuff like that.
All right, awesome. Let's give him a round of applause.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Ritvik. We are both in 8th grade, going to high school next year.
We haven't played organized football before, but we are both interested in playing in high school.
We have heard from our parents that football involves a lot of injuries and could be dangerous.
So we decided to talk to some high schools in our area about the safety of their football programs.
I'm Marlon Blanton. I'm the head football coach here at Jesuit High School.
My name is Malcolm Ajayi. I'm the varsity defensive backs coach.
And I'm Marco Lopez, Sacramento High School athletic director, and I manage all the sports here at Sacramento High School.
Yeah, my name is Derek Milgram. I'm the head football coach at Casunas Oaks High School.
I've been coaching here at Christian Brothers. This is just finished my 4th year. Coached 35 years at Jesuit. So overall, I've coached, this is my 40th year coaching.
When we talk about our football players or any athletes here, we use the term student athlete. So we put students first. So, and the big part for us is that guys are learning how to manage their time, because there's more required of you when you're going to be a student athlete. The cons is probably what you guys are talking about, and for me as a coach, you know, one of the hardest part about being in any sport is being injured. So that's a challenge.
Obviously, you see some sprains and twists of knees and ankles and shoulders and fingers and wrists and things like that, and you try to deal with those. Occasionally, you will see concussions. Although I'd say that in the recent years, I've seen a dramatic decrease in concussions, in my opinion.
But major injuries would be major knee injuries, major shoulder injuries, and of course concussions. Concussions are number one, but to me the knee injuries, because that puts a player out for a long time, if not the entire season. So
safety. Simple as that, safety. I think the NFL, the college, the high school level, we're working on finding ways to keep the game as safe as possible.
We actually just got back from a training at Stanford University with some of our local coaches here from Burbank High School and the area around, where it was a partnership with ESPN, Heads Up Football, and NCAA, where it was teaching us the fundamentals of tackling properly, fixing some of those misconceptions of how to tackle, how to keep your head up, so that we can avoid those concussions.
I can tell you, we at the varsity level, my first 2 years here, I think my first year we had 3 concussions. My second year here we had 7 concussions. The last 2 years, 0 concussions.
So, we teach technique in terms of hitting and tackling, and a lot of that has gone the direction recently of trying to avoid contact directly with the head. We don't aim to hit players on the other team in their head. We try not to use our head when we're initiating contact, and that helps. We do have to tackle each other in practice sometimes. We do have to go 100% full speed live at times in practice, but we limit it. We don't do it every day, and we don't do it an excessive amount.
Having a son that played in the NFL, and then he also played in college as well as my youngest son, the major focus is on concussions, and both of them had significant concussions, one in high school and one in college. So I think it's one of the best things that's happened in the last few years in all sports, but especially football because it's such a high contact sport, is the awareness of concussions, how to deal with them, and the protocol in terms of making sure an athlete's completely healthy before he or she returns to play.
Our protocol is pretty extensive here. So if you get a concussion, you have to see an athletic trainer first, and then you have to see the athletic director or assistant athletic director. You have to go to our doctor first, and then you have to go to your own doctor. You're automatically out for at least a week or 2 weeks before you even get to come back if you have a concussion. Now, we start with the baseline testing. So every freshman has to do a test, and it's called a baseline test. It's just to see where you are in the beginning and where you are if you do get a concussion. So we have an extensive protocol in place for people who get concussions.
It actually starts before they ever step on the field. I think a lot of high schools are adopting what they call the impact test program. That's what we call it here at Christian Brothers, what we use. Our trainers administer it, so the coaches aren't involved with it at all. We don't have any impact or involvement in terms of whether a player plays or not. But the impact test is they take your baseline, you answer a number of questions, okay, in terms of your response time and mental acuity. If you're injured, you have to go back and take that test and pass it and have it pretty much the same baseline, so that they can be allowed back on the field. Obviously, you have to get a doctor's note after seeing a doctor. So to me, the protocol is one of the best things that's happened since I've been a coach.
I think a combination of things. I think high school football and football in general is safer now than it's ever been. I think we have better equipment than we've ever had. I think we have more knowledge and education about concussions and head injuries than we've ever had, and we're reacting to those better than we ever have. It's still a physical game. It's a violent game. And so, but we're changing, certain hits that used to be legal are now illegal. And so the game is becoming safer while still being a competitive game and a physical game.
I think that the game is elevating because everybody's so much faster. The game's a lot more spread out. Like when I played in high school, we were an I formation West Coast team. So that is basically a man on a man, whoever wins, the best man will win. Now they're implementing the spread offense where you can just throw the ball all over the field and you have a wide open space to run and to tackle and to get better. So I think that the game is evolving for the better because it's keeping players a lot more safer and it's a lot more spread out.
Well, I think, it's a balance, and I think I have a little bit of a concern, especially early in the season. They've put specific limitations on how much live tackling you can do. And I've never been a proponent of live full-go tackling, taking athletes to the ground. I mean, I think Maggie would to attest. We stay up when we tackle. We have quick whistles. So we've always never had any problem with the full-go constant tackling. But at the same time, it's a physical game, and you got to get players ready. And I think especially early in the season, there might not be enough time for coaches to help their athletes get ready.
Well, basically, I think the message is that we want football to be something that helps prepare you for life after football. How to be a better person, how to work as hard as you can, how to be part of a collaborative team, how to deal with the highs and the lows, not just of football, but of life.
Get your diploma, because that's what's gonna last. That's what lasted for me. I hurt my knee my last year in college, and I wasn't able to do what I wanted to with football. But I had a diploma, and that's why I got to work here. So just have a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. There's always life after football.
When I think of sports and I think of football, the only con to me is being injured, because there's so many advantages playing a team sport. You learn how to work well with others. You learn how to be passionate about something and give yourself and your time to something. You learn what it means to work together with the group, and you learn what it means to get the best out of yourself.
Because that's the number one goal. Have fun, compete, but we've got to keep our players safe.
So in conclusion, we have learned a lot about football safety from these interviews and from our project.
But our parents aren't very excited about us playing football next year. Can I play football next year?
I don't know. Dad, I think I want to play football next year.
No, I don't think so.
But hey, at least we have all summer to convince them.
Yeah, I mean, at least we're still good at flag football.
I haven't played really much all season.
Go, Sam, go! Yeah, there you go!
So we want to play football next year. So do you have any advice about player safety and sports in general?
Well, the great thing is Dr. Amalu is here today, and the movie Concussion was basically made after his life, and it talked about the risk of playing football, especially tackle football, and the impact getting hit in the head and helmets. I know there's a device out that you insert inside the helmet that lessens the impact. And one of the questions I'm going to ask him tonight, quite honestly, is if a young person has a helmet with that added cushion, does that, in his expert opinion, allow young people to play football? I don't know what the answer is, because that makes me really nervous. In the NFL, they say 1 out of 3 football players has some sort of CTE, which is essentially somebody who's got a disorder because of the amount of impacts to their head. I don't want to see a young person experience that, but Dr. Amalu knows best, and I'm going to ask him today as well. But I can tell you, playing basketball, there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to have a mean jumper and a cool crossover and some cool sneakers, and you'll be good.
Our last video today creates awareness for a terrible disease. Let's go to Oak Hill Elementary School student Maggie.
Well, people don't know what ALS is and how serious it is, so we decided to film a real person with ALS, Shelley Hoover. She's famous, she's motivational, and she doesn't let ALS slow her down. People with sicknesses like ALS and diseases, they're still the same people like us, so you shouldn't treat them any differently than they are. Every 90 minutes, somebody is diagnosed with ALS, and every 90 minutes, someone loses the fight with ALS, and they can't hold it anymore. Hi, my name is Maggie. I am in Oak Hill Elementary, and my video is creating awareness for ALS.
And I'm Maggie, and today we are going to talk to a special person named Shelley Hoover who has the disease ALS. ALS is also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Shelley Hoover is a motivational person who sadly has the disease ALS and is raising money not for herself, but to find an effective cure for ALS.
For those who don't know what ALS is, it's a progressive motor neuron disease where the communication from the brain to all the voluntary muscles just slowly die, and then the muscles atrophy. So mine started in my legs, and my feet weren't responding, and I kept falling down. So I went to the doctor, and it took almost a year to figure out what was going on. It's a really hard disease to diagnose. But slowly, what happens with ALS is people lose control of all their voluntary muscles, which includes walking, using your hands, rolling over in bed, talking, eating, and eventually breathing. That's when most people will die, because they can't control their lungs anymore.
Why do you work so hard to create awareness for ALS?
Well, there's lots of reasons that I want to create awareness for ALS. The more people who know about it, the more chance we have of raising funds for research. And my very life depends upon us finding an effective treatment or a cure for ALS, because right now we don't have one.
In what ways do you create awareness?
I think, but the biggest thing I do for advocacy is once a year I go to Washington, D.C. I've gone twice now. This year will be my third year. And I sit down with senators and people from Congress and their staff and ask them for money for research, money for the Department of Defense to fund research, and for awareness, because without the money to fund the studies, we won't find that treatment.
What do you want people to know about ALS?
What people need to know about ALS is that there is no effective treatment or cure. It's 100% fatal, because you get to the point where you can't eat or breathe, you can no longer live. So I want people to know about ALS so they can vote to encourage their congresspeople or talk to them about getting more money and awareness, because the more people who know and are aware, the greater chance we have of finding a cure. They're estimating there's about 30,000 people alive with ALS at any given time, and there's about 5,000 people diagnosed a year. But there's not a lot of people with the disease because most people don't live very long. In fact, half the people who are diagnosed with ALS die within about less than 2 years. So I'm really one of the lucky ones because I have a slow progression.
What was your reaction when you started having symptoms and were diagnosed with ALS?
At first it was just a shock, kind of disbelief that this really can't be happening. They must have made a mistake. And so it's a grief process. It's coming to terms with loss, but it's on a continual basis. But I was very shocked. Of course, my family was very sad to hear that there was nothing they could do to help me.
How did you stay positive and upbeat after you were diagnosed with ALS?
It comes down to a couple things. One is my faith is very important to me, so I have a lot of hope that on this life God has a purpose for me, and when I die, my life will just be different, but I'll still have a wonderful life. So my faith has been a real important part of that. And I think part of it too is if I do have a shortened life expectancy, like if I want to be here another 50 years, but I may only be here another 2 or 3, I want to make the most of those 2 or 3 years, right? And I don't want to be miserable, and I don't want to make the people around me miserable. It's learning how to grieve and learning how to daily deal with loss. And so you acknowledge that it's painful, right? And I might cry, I might throw things, get frustrated, get mad, and kind of let off some steam. But I don't want to get stuck there. I say, you know what, today's a good day, and so we're gonna get up and make it a good one. So I would rather be happy and spread joy and hope and encouragement while I'm still here.
When you started having ALS, what did you really lose?
For everything that I've lost in terms of mobility, I've gained 1,000 times in friendships and really seeing how beautiful people really are, right? And how we can love and support each other as humans, where it gives me time to pause and really think about those things and how important they are.
Just to slow down life.
Right. And what really is important, right? It's our relationships with our family and our loved ones, and our friends and coworkers that really matters the most.
Yeah. Why are you the one that creates awareness for ALS? I mean, there are lots of people with ALS, so why are you the one?
I want to be a voice for those who have lost their voice. Some people with ALS, the first thing they lose is their voice, and they can't talk anymore, and it's really hard to communicate with electronic devices. So I still have a voice, and I want to be a voice for those who aren't as fortunate as I am to have all the support that I have, a great family system and social support.
We recently researched the clinic drug trials for ALS. Do you participate in any of these trials?
I have, yes, I have in the past. There's a long process through the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, that drugs have to go through, and there's all different phases of trials, and they're looking at different things. The drug trials that I can participate in are called phase 1 trials that are the first time going into humans. because they're not really looking at efficacy yet. They're just looking at safety. So my hope is to be the first human to participate in that trial. And even though it will take another 10 years probably for the FDA to approve the medication, if it does work, it's a way that I can help those who will come behind me by participating in those trials.
Are there any drugs out there that are not available to ALS patients but they might work?
Yes, that's a really good question. And a lot of my efforts in advocacy are reaching out to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, asking them to move a little more quickly. So there are drugs that are in phase 2 and phase 3 of the FDA approval process that show a lot of hope. There's a lot of work going on in stem cell trials. I know of a patient who was in a wheelchair like me, participated in a stem cell trial and was up chasing his dog in the yard, right? So there's lots of hope, but we can't access the medications to the general people with ALS until it's gone through the entire FDA process, which costs about $2.6 billion to get a treatment through the approval process. So it's very expensive and takes a very long time.
What do you want people to do about ALS?
I want people to find a cure. So we have to get really smart, intelligent young people like you excited about working in neurology and labs. We want people to continue to fight for a cure, continue to advocate for those who are without, to make sure they have the equipment that they need. Most people before the Ice Bucket Challenge a few years ago had never even heard of ALS, right? And now we have a lot more money for funding, a lot more awareness. So the more people know about it, the better, because we'll be one step closer to a treatment.
What is your current goal? What are you planning on doing next?
My most important thing is just to be thankful and grateful that I have another day. And so I want to tell everybody how much I love them, the people who are important to me, because that's what matters most. My next 2 steps in awareness for ALS and advocacy is I hope to participate in this drug trial in the spring for this brand new molecule that was really hopeful to slow some of the progression. And then the second thing, my husband and I will be driving to Washington, D.C. in May to participate in the Advocacy Day, where we'll go on Capitol Hill and talk to senators and congressmen. Because it's easy for them to read about ALS or hear about ALS, but when I show up in their office, a real patient who has the disease, it makes it a more immediate, concern for them.
Is there anything else you would like to share to help your awareness effort?
Well, first I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today and helping me spread awareness. You guys are a big part of that. I think my final message would be that if we can learn anything from this tragedy or learn anything from suffering for people who are suffering, is to live each day to your best and to make sure that the people around you know how much you love them and appreciate them, and not to take anything for granted, even as simple as just jumping off that chair. Don't take that for granted, because we have so much to be thankful for.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and all that you do to support ALS. We're really thankful that you could come and share with us your thoughts and opinions.
We've come to the end of this episode of Student TV, but there are always more student videos to watch at secctv.org. Until next time, I'm Mia Daniels.